Kev here, the king of the trolls, and I want to talk about this march that happened in D.C. today. You see, you had this protest in D.C. to protest the Kate Steinle verdict, and it included about 60 people protesting and then about 60 counter-protesters. So it wasn't a big protest as far as numbers, but it was a big protest as far as media coverage. And that sort of filters into what I'm going to talk about next. You see, this was about the Kate Steinle verdict. And what happened was, if you haven't been paying attention, in California, an illegal alien who had no right to be here, total scum-sucking leech, he obtained a firearm illegally, an illegal firearm that was stolen, obtained it, and then went on to shoot this gun, whether it be maliciously or accidentally, in a public place that resulted in the death of a young girl named Kate Steinle. Now, this young girl was at the prime of her life, and she was cut down by this person who did nothing for America, broke all kinds of laws receiving the gun, then broke all kinds of laws when he shot her, then broke all kinds of laws, I'm sure, in between, and probably before that. Total piece of crap. In any other state, this man would have been in prison for 30 years at least, and then deported. But because it's California, this is what I consider to be the logical conclusion of identitarian politics, cultural Marxism, critical theory run amok. You see, you have a population in California so dumbed down, so brainwashed, that these people no longer care about justice for the majority population. There were people at the State House in California calling this a victory for brown people. You know, calling white people who passed by and complained about it, they were calling them honkies and crackers. And nobody said anything about this. It didn't make any media coverage. But, you know, people basically celebrating this girl's death and then the verdict for a person who had no right to be in this country whatsoever and did nothing but take from this country. Also, you have these prosecutors in California, these people in government there, including Governor Jerry Brown, who are more worried about left-wing activism and political correctness than they are about justice. They care more about social justice than actual justice. And it's showing, guys. This is what happens. And it's getting dangerous for a lot of people who dissent in California, who speak up about this. And so how does that tie into this protest? Well, we'll talk about that. You see, in this protest, you had Richard Spencer, Mike Enoch, some people who are considered alt-right. I don't consider them right-wing myself. To me, Richard Spencer's more like Hillary Clinton back in the 1980s when she was waving a rebel flag around and courting Southern white voters. That's who Richard Spencer is to me, because politically and economically, he's the exact same as she was back then. But here's the thing, right? You had these white identitarians on one side. On the other side, you had ANTIFA, who play identitarian for gays, for, you know, trans, for blacks, for whatever purse puppy minority group they want to claim as oppressed this week. And you had your usual suspects on that side. You had Lacy MacCauley. Those of you who don't know who Lacy MacCauley is, she's this girl who wanted to virtue signal so bad that she got involved with a Muslim man who took her to the Middle East. Then in the Middle East, as it happens to many women, she was taken there, beaten, and then held there against her will. You'd think she would learn her lesson. Well, no, she comes back and starts the same thing over again. And she runs some Antifa groups in Washington, D.C., and she was there, and they were attacking the alt-right guys. And the one thing I can say about the alt-right and the alt-left is that you constantly see these groups clashing, but the one thing you could say is that these guys on the right, they're not starting these fights or perpetuating the violence like the people on the left are. But anyway, I digress. These two groups went out there and clashed heads, and they're playing identity politics, and this is exactly what results from this. You have the media making one side look like horrible people, degenerates, taking photos of all the white people in this crowd. Then on the other side, you have the media taking photos of all the minority people, videotaping only the people who are trans or black or whatever, or Hispanic. And then that's how it's portrayed to the world. That the white people are horrible, even though there's only 60 of them there. Only 60. nationwide, there's only probably 2,000 of these white supremacists. But the media circles around these people. Never mind all the other protests about this verdict all over the nation that the media has ignored. Never mind the thousands of people I've seen on Facebook just in the past few days with Kate Steinle placards on their Facebook wall. This is what we end up with. We end up with the media portraying anybody who supports this decision as evil white people, and you have the media portraying everybody on the left as, peaceful when they're not, as oppressed when they're not, and as victims of some sort of white hate and oppression when they're not. And this perpetuates situations like what we saw with Kate Steinle. And there was a perfect metaphor for this that I saw a couple nights ago. On Netflix, there's a film that's called BBC KKK in America. It's by the BBC. And it tells the story of what we're seeing now, basically. See, this is a film centered around the KKK in Virginia. And it follows these people in the KKK as they're just living their lives. And then the Dylan Roof thing happens. So they follow these KKK people all around the country. And things, were starting to get hot then. And you had all this rioting and stuff. Well, they go down and they videotape them with the Black Lives Matter group. And they go in with these Black Lives Matter people. And they're showing them. And they film their lives just like they filmed the KKK people's lives. And then they show them clash at the end. And in the end, as much as the BBC tried to paint the BLM people as peaceful as the good guys, they had videos in this, clips in this documentary where they were beating up a white woman who wanted to be an ally, who had a mixed race child, and pushing her out of their protests. They were throwing rocks, beating people, viciously in gangs. And as much as this BBC reporter and this documentary tried to make the left look good and BLM look virtuous, like they were somehow, fighting back after all these years, they made them look like pieces of crap. And it's a perfect analogy for what you see today in D.C. And I recommend you guys go watch that, because then you really see how bad the media tries to manipulate the public. First, focusing on a group that has zero support whatsoever nationwide, is a very, very small minority of the total population. And when I say very small, minuscule, microscopic. But they focus on them and you get tons of media attention, painting the white people as bad, painting people on the right as bad, labeling them right when they're not. And then on the same hand, you have them painting the left as virtuous, painting them as fighting some good fight. Guys, what do you say that? What do you do with that? It's just going to end up bringing on more verdicts like what we saw in California. And when we lose justice, we lose everything. So, take what you will out of this. I just wanted to talk about and vent. I'm out.